All signs point to this, as following yet another brutal loss, some wild new reports and rumors have started to drop surrounding the future of many key pieces of this Toronto Maple Leafs team, including the front office, as fans and now even the media has had enough of what has been a brutal season thus far for the Leafs. So to break that down, as well as discuss a bunch of other updates on this episode ahead of the big game this evening. But before we get into it, a quick reminder, folks, to hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. There's a lot to go over today. The Leafs, you were doing a watch-along stream. Another loss. Thought they had it there for a little bit. They collapsed in the third period. A lot of things are starting to go wrong again for this team. They barely win a couple nights ago with the boys coming back. And now it's time to talk about the future of not just Berube, but now Brad Treliving. And you can see this here. Now, this is from Logan Thompson following the game. He said, overall, one of our best games of the year. We pressured them all night, controlled the game. Joseph Wall kept them in it. He was excellent. And then you can see here from Leafs updates, it feels like every team is saying this. And I mean, the win against the Blue Jackets a couple days ago, Leafs got outplayed. They won the game, but they got outplayed. Yesterday, they ultimately almost got another squeaker. They got outplayed. And you look at the defensive ranks, last at almost everything in the NHL. They have statistically one of, if not the worst, defensive teams in the NHL. Is it all because of injury? A lot of it is. But Darius, fans have now started to have enough about the, enough with the team, but also starting to put in question the future of Brad Treliving.
Yeah, and I've remained optimistic all year long to this point. In October, when they weren't playing well, I said, hey, they never do. November's going to be better. And then it wasn't. And I'm still remaining optimistic. I have till this point, until yesterday's game. And it's ironic because it's Black Friday and, a bunch of deals out there. You can go to Walmart and get whatever you want. Everything must go. And the same thing is with the Toronto Maple Leafs now. Everything, whether it be the players, the GM, the coach, at this point, I've lost it. I'm not optimistic anymore. Everything must go, or at least one thing must change. And I don't know if it's going to be Brad Treliving in season, but something has to change at this point because, like I was saying last week, I don't know if it is the coach. I actually don't know if it is the GM. I thought he's made actually quite a few really good moves for this team because of where they are in their window. And a lot of people say, oh, look at Fraser Mitten, all of these things. Matthias Maccelli has more points than those guys. But, if you look at some of the moves he's made, I've been a fan of them. And then when you look at the coaching this year, they're last in so many places, right? So many different stats. Or close to last. They've been horrible. And then to lose that game yesterday where you're on the road, you're up 2-0 and you don't deserve to win, you still lose the game. It's absolutely ridiculous. This to me is rock bottom where they're at right now. Something has to give. And if they lose to the Penguins tonight, they lose to Kyle Dubas's team that is in the playoffs and nobody thought was going to be in the playoff spot, at least at this point in the season. Something will change, I think, next week, whether it's the coach. I don't know if it's Brad Treliving in season, but Keith Pelly is, I think, going to do something here. And I still think it does fall mainly on the players. I do think that there's a system in place here that they're not executing on, but it comes to a point with how much skill you have on this roster and Austin Matthews. And I don't know if these guys are being held back. Nylander's having a great year. You're wasting a great season from John Tavares at 35 years old. At some point, I think you do have to go, you're going to lose the season here if you just, stick by your guns. If you are stubborn, maybe there is a coaching change and maybe it would change things. But it's the entire coaching staff, right? Like Derek Lalonde hasn't been that good either. You can see really the impact that Lane Lambert had on the team last year now through the lens of this year. And then when you look at, Mark Savard, I think he's a great guy, all of those things, I guess, right? But when you look at the results, Leafs power play with how much skill is on it is awful, right? So maybe they just have to clean house in that way and move forward. That game yesterday really changed my mind. You might be like, hey, it's a random game on a Friday night. Why would that change your mind? With how far we are in the season now, December's around the corner on Monday. You could lose the season here very quickly.
Yeah, they are in danger of missing the playoffs at this point. And again, the worst statistic team in the NHL defensively, or one of the worst teams. And you can see here yesterday, 16-6 shots attempts in favor of the Capitals with Nyes, Matthews, and Robertson on the ice in 5-on-5. Just going nowhere if your top line can't even break even possession-wise. So it is an absolute disaster. They have no regulation wins in their last 10 games and only 6 all season, which is kind of crazy. 6 regulation wins in 24 games, which is a little bit wild, at least according to James Myrtle here. And again, they're 2-6-2 in the stretch. Only Nashville has been worse. It's bad. They are losing a lot of games. You can see this here. The worst part about this season so far is that these guys never even went on a single run over, a decade long. What a waste of time. Now, this, of course, talking about as if the season is over, all these different things. I don't think Brad Treliving's going to get, I don't think, at least by the end of, midway through this year, I think Berube is probably more likely to go. But the fingers had to be pointed to a bunch of people now, and they'd probably tell you that it's injuries. Now, this stat, again, the defense has been awful. A lot of their defensemen are injured, but at the same time, they are aging. Like Chris Tanev has been out. He's their best defenseman. Brandon Carlo, he hasn't been playing well. He's not aging. But that was the big acquisition. You have Jake McCabe getting up there in age, Morgan Riley getting up there in age, all these guys, and not getting old necessarily, but they're not going to get better, at least in my mind. Morgan Riley had a good offensive year. It's just the way the team is. They brought in Michelli. They brought in Joshua in the offseason. They've done absolutely nothing. They let, the Mitch Marner thing, I'm not going to hold against them. It is bad. And it's as bad as it's been in a very long time. You can see here, you cannot tell me that Berube and Treliving are seeing eye to eye these days. It's going to keep getting worse. If they lose tonight, you mentioned it, some changes are coming, whether that's a Michael Bunting trade, whether that's something to try to get this team going. It's going to be wild.
Yeah, but I look at the roster construction as well. A lot of people are talking about that and that it should be Brad Treliving on the way out. And there have been rumors this past week about how, if you're talking about a hot seat, at least in terms of MLSE and Keith Pelley and what they're feeling, it is Brad Treliving rather than Craig Berube right now, which is a little crazy, I think, with the way that the team is playing. But a lot of people are talking about the roster construction. But I think if you think back to the Babcock days, there were certain moves that he did in terms of deployment where you could see he was almost yelling and crying for help to Kyle Dubas, like, get me a guy for this spot, or, I need a right shot defenseman. Like, you could tell there were certain moves that he was doing on the ice that was almost like a shot across, to Kyle Dubas, please make a move for me, right? And sometimes with Craig Berube, I don't know if he's necessarily doing it, but why does Matthews start so many shifts in the defensive zone? It's just odd. And you went out and got Nick Waugh for that reason. You actually have a third line center now, and for some reason, Domi still plays center sometimes. It's odd. I can't understand some of the moves. So who is it first out the door? Let us know in the comments down below, because it's getting to a point where I think you're going to have no choice but to make a move. And, I was talking about it earlier this season where, a lot of people thought Berube was gone earlier this month. And I was like, it's not going to happen that easily. But I think you're heading into a spot now where the last half of December, if things are continuing this way, you're going to be so far out of a playoff spot, which is crazy because you're not yet. And this division is so bad this season that you're going to have to do something. I still think it could be a trade first, because I think for MLSE and the way that the Leafs organization is structured now without a president, it would be tough to fire the coach, and who are you going to hire? You have to figure that out as well in real time. But with the GM spot, is it Brandon Pridham that takes over possibly? I wouldn't be opposed to that. I did like some of his moves and, some of the things that, have come out about him advising about certain moves. So schedule doesn't get much easier here. It's actually been quite easy this entire season to this point, and they've played a lot of home games as well. So they have an opportunity here, I think, to come together as a group, but it just hasn't happened. Is it the roster construction? Is it the deployment? Is it the coaching? You can't deny the stats at this point. This is a substantial sample size so far. We're almost 25 games into the season, and they're not performing. They're putting up terrible performances. It's terrible to watch, and almost every single team is coming out after the game in interviews and saying that was the best game we played, and we ran around on them, right? So it's just not a good situation. And something, whether it's a trade, whether it is Craig Berube, whether it is Brad Treliving, and you just bring in Brandon Pridham instead, something I believe is going to change very soon, and it might be a trade to start.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier. You can see here, month of December, gonna be rough. But let us know down below what your thoughts are on all this. Either way, we'll keep you up to date every step of the way, and we'll see you guys later.